Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I am officially official live. Hello to TikTok. Hello to you on the YouTube streets, as well as the Instagram streets. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for wherever you are joining from. Thank you and welcome. I'm a little bit I'm a bit tardy for the party on today. I was trying to get the APB out and get the word out on the fact that we are doing our weekly Mature Me Mondays, our weekly live that we do here at Honestly Me with Coach D, where authenticity meets assignment, where I'm helping you grow emotionally and spiritually mature so that you can be successful in your familial relationships as well as business, career, and ministry. Whether it's all of those things, some of those things, whatever it is, I'm helping you to get there. And I'm gonna make a note to say that at the top of all my lives. What am I here for? The basis is, and we've been in this series about becoming, which is a part of my foundational mission statement, because I believe that when you are firm, confident, clear on who you are, you it helps to weed out a lot of the stuff that we stay stuck in. A lot of the, let's just put it out there, petty things that we allow ourselves to stay stuck on, it begins to free us to and relieve us of staying in those cycles, right? If I'm constantly worrying about, now we're talking about people today. Jonathan McReynolds, if you know him, he's a gospel artist that has an amazing song called People. I love the perspective of the song. Definitely check it out if you can. But we're talking about people today. And so we run into this issue with people. Okay. And so that's what we're talking about. And so my goal as, honestly, me with Coach D is helping you to realize your purpose, your identity, to help you to, as people like to say, grasp onto the higher version, your higher self of you through the foundational biblical understanding of the core of who you are and why you are on this earth. Okay. And so whether that is, and I mean, I think that we negate that we are to be impactful in some way, shape, or form to all these buckets in our life. Now, if whether it's our focal point, right? Because for some of us, business is quote unquote our ministry. That is a place of impact that we are meant to have. And there's nothing wrong with that. For some people, it's full on ministry, and that's your audience and that's your people. For others, it is their community, right? They are supposed to be trailblazers and advocate for their community that they are a part of. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's your family, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I know that my audience, my people that I'm called to are absolutely leaders. And so I'm helping you as a leader and whatever you're called to lead to marry the understanding of spiritual maturity and emotional maturity as well, how they work in tandem, they work together. And I honestly believe that you see so many people struggle in their faith, struggle in living this life because they don't know how these things work in tandem and how they are mutually beneficial to your health, your formation, and how you relate to the people, to the world around you, and to God ultimately. Okay, so hopefully that brings some clarity on what you'll see here, what you'll be encountered with here as we move along through this particular live and this particular teaching. So I wanted to get started foundationally like that, but I also wanted to, we'll talk about this subject. This subject, I was talking to someone in regards to a subject about just people, the frustration that comes with dealing with people and what that looked like. And I began to share, they shared a little bit of their scenario, and I just shared my progression with people. And particularly for those who are called to leaders, you're called to pull people up, you're called to help people out. It's something about, I believe that leaders are born, number one. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I'm like, I believe that leaders are born, number one. And then leaders are cultivated, right? And the hope is that not only through life they are cultivated, but also through training and also through experience and all these different things, whether it's formal or informal. But absolutely, let me tell you something, life is going to teach you as a leader how to govern yourself in whatever leadership capacity or role that you undertake, whether that's entrepreneurship, business, whether you are, president of a company, vice president, CFO, whatever you are, whether you are in ministry, in Christian ministry of some kind, and over people, over leaders, whatever your leadership call takes you, you're going to have to deal with people, okay? And the same people that will bring abundance and favor and amazingness to your life can also bring a bit of frustration, right? And so the vehicle in which, God will mold you, train you, grow you, bestow blessings and favor upon you is through people. Whether again, any area of your life, family, friends, I said music. If your career in music and you want to hear through that, in whatever area that you have, you can't help but to have a interaction of some kind with people. So when people say, I got it out the mud all by myself, no, somebody had to sign a check that was given to you. Somebody had to print the check. Somebody had to do something to get send money away. Somebody had to say, I will go into a lease with you so you can have a roof over your head. Somebody had to say, I will sell my house to you and sign it for you to be able to buy that house. So you can't say, I had no help, I got out the mud, it was all me. I don't care if it's the most clerical administrative thing. If people in life are just passing papers around just so you can have basic needs, okay? If the cashier rung up your food, thank you. You did not do any of this by yourself, okay? And so we need people to walk through life, to help us. And I believe that we need people in all levels and stages of life because it helps to make us well rounded. And so, in talking about people and people, and I'm gonna share just briefly my testimony. I share with that particular person a bit of my testimony. I said, listen, the enemy um, did not want me to be who I am today, absolutely, and try to get me young. Of course, many of us, especially of a certain age, you may be experienced bullying, you may be experienced just stuff in your family that made you feel ostracized, that made you feel weird. You may have experienced things in school where people would just pick on you for no reason. I'm talking about the ones, I'm just minding my business. I'm just living. I'm just existing. I'm just breathing air, and stuff is happening that would discourage me from wanting to lead anything, to make relationships, certainly not ones that are lasting, right? And so there are things that can happen even from kid through tween years, through teen years, that will gravely discourage us. And for me, my personal testimony, I had two significant relationships between 17 and 20. And what happened at 17, that person was, a best friend since middle school years, right? And so went through a scenario. They was going through their changes. And long to the short of it, I went through deep hurt, deep betrayal, right? And then fast forward when I was just angry and hurt and devastated, and my mom had to peer me off the ground and console me, right? Fast forward, I met somebody else and tried again, right? I tried again and got burnt again. And and that at that time, that person tried to cost me my money, my career at the time. And it wasn't a career, it was a job. But I need the money, trying to mess up my rotation. And so it was deep betrayal, and I was just so completely hurt. And that's not the point of the testimony. The point of the testimony, I want to fast forward. I remember some years later, on separate occasions, these women just, randomly reconnected. It was like, hey, let's link up, let's reconnect, let's just, catch up and everything. And both of those ladies at separate times, individually, they did not know each other, right? These are people from two completely different um, times in my life. But with each encounter I had with them, they were able to let me know what was happening surrounding what was going on and why the betrayal. And with both of them, it boiled down to um, you would tell me the truth. Number one, there were people surrounding me, instructing me on literally how to destroy you, or instructed me on the fact that, don't be her friend. She's bad news. Da 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 da. When they knew that that was to the contrary. But so on one instance, my former best friend, childhood best friend, grown women they were instructing her and saying how terrible I am, how no good I am, all these different things. And one of the women had a crush on her who was grown with a whole family. Okay, that's T. Where's my T at? Zip T. But and had her own agenda, wink, wink, that I absolutely wouldn't have approved of. And I absolutely would have been an advocate for my best friend and all that fun stuff. And I was already giving a side eye at the time, like, what's going on here? Like, what's that? Like, this ain't cool. This ain't it. Right. And so, of course, you push the person out the picture that is a representation of truth. Even though I didn't know the fullness, I didn't understand. But of course, my friend knew me to be perceptive and, all that stuff. The other friend, there was a person in her ear instructing her on how to go to human resources, how to file a complaint against me that was, just off base, how to do all of these things to betray my trust, right? And was literally walking her through the process and helping her. And that other person, other coworker, was supposed to be a friend of mine, right? And so all that to say, I was like, and then at the time they were able to, hey, all the people that you told me to stay away from was proven true. The people that you said wasn't no good for me absolutely were not, and they reaped, right? So when people talk about revenge, God has the best revenge. And it's not that you delight in it, but it's just that when you come to terms with what happens in relationships and what goes on, you could come to terms with it and be like, God, listen, that's all you. I have to move on with my life, and whatever happens, say la vie, okay? Say la vie. And so all that to say, just a brief testimony as to what can happen. I know for me, like I said, it was early on where I had to really, have some hurtful, agonizing, things happen. And I was super hurt. I was super frustrated. I was all of the things at those moments. And this is again between 17 and 20. So several years, decades later, I had to, at least one decade later, I had to begin to work through the vows that I made after those instances. I had to work through the vows that I made after those traumas, right? And so the vows that I was making, I don't need no friends. Come on, we all know the vows. I don't need no friends. I don't want no friends. Friends ain't for me. I don't need them in my life. Women, I don't like women. All my friends are guy friends, right? We do that. Guys' friends are easier. We do that, right? We don't want no sisterhood because we've been hurt. And this can come from sisters, blood sisters, non-blood sisters, friends, girlfriends. It can come from mother relationships, right? It can come from any female, and I'm talking about females right now, but even for brothers, right? It can come from dad relationship, your brother relationship, guy relationship. And brothers, men will handle these things a bit different. I'm not saying that it's completely different because men get hurt too, right? You know what I mean? So it might look a bit different. Hey there. It might look a little bit different, but we definitely, men do get hurt, right? But it definitely feels like these kinds of things happen more with women. Now, I don't know if that's because women can be more relational, because that is a part to play. Because there are men who are just not relational. So yeah, you're not going to get hurt because you're not trying to be close, right? Because you've always kept everybody at arm's length. So I think sometimes, that's only for you or whomever to assess, right? Hey, Ange, it's for you to assess. And so it's about understanding, where am I in this process? If I've never been hurt by nobody, is it because I'm keeping everybody at arm's length? I'm not letting anybody in. And so for me, I had a journey of healing to go on for literally 10 years, because I had to um the over 10 years from me being 20, probably 5 to 7 years, and I had to start denouncing some things. I had to denounce those vows. I had to start opening my heart. I had to start letting God show me some things about relationships, that my approach to them, I had to heal from those things, right? Why did I need to heal? Because of where I'm called to, who I'm called to. I'm called to be a sister, right? I'm called to be those things. And so if I'm over here wounded, I can't receive, I can't, I'm not healed. How am I going to treat the person that God wants to bless me with? How am I going to treat them? Right? Am I going to miss the opportunity for deeper connection, for better relationship, because I'm so wounded, so broken, and so hurt? Right? This is all my introduction. I ain't even get into the teaching yet. Because one of the things that I was thinking about, again, and sharing my testimony with you and with this young lady, is how, like I said, shared from my testimony, they mentioned that the very thing that makes you you is what caused me to break trust, to break your heart, to break relationship, and to run away. Right. So, me, the way I'm built, the way my gifting is, the way my mantle is, the way I'm wired, right? What I learned about myself is not just in what I say. A part of my gifting, a part of who I am, your gifting represents something. A lot of people like to say aura. What's your aura? What's your vibe? I don't like those terms. But I know that that's something that a lot of people say. What is your aura? Your presence. I tell my son, I'm like, say presence. If you don't say anointing because that's too churchy, say presence, right? And so what does your presence say to somebody? Just you walking in the room. What does that say? And for some people, that your presence might say disruption. And I'm not talking about from a toxic way. We're going to talk about what that really means a little bit later in this teaching, because I'm not talking about toxic. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, because of how you're wired, because of how God made you, what you say and how you move may look and feel different from other people. Okay. And It can be an irritation to a person that does not want to change. I'm teaching already. It can, you and your comfortable, maturing, self-aware state can make a person who's not there and who is insecure or who has not graduated there very uncomfortable. It can literally trigger them. We have to understand that a person's mere presence can trigger somebody and send them into a whole emotional spiral that you had nothing to do with. You wasn't the author of, you didn't participate in it, but just the fact that you showed up being authentically, come on, honestly, me with Coach D, authentically and honestly who you are. And I'm not talking about not being polite. I'm not talking about that. Let's throw that in the trash. I'm talking about you just being you, open, kind, right? Not shy, not in a corner, don't put baby in the corner, right? I'm not that. That can be disruptive. The fact that you walk in a room, and let's talk about, for me personally, how I engage with people, my friends and everything. I kept it real. I wasn't mean, but I kept it honest. I was very much, but we don't realize, three people can say the same thing and the one person say it and it just hits differently. And so I didn't recognize that when I spoke truth, like, people, the way they received it, it really hit them. It really bothered them, even though they knew it was more irritating than other people if somebody else would say it, right? So let's work through this teaching. This is just my intro and I'm taking up 20 minutes, but let's work through this. Okay, I want to talk about, again, let's talk about this thing that we don't always have the language for. Okay, there are seasons where becoming does not feel like a blessing. It feels like a curse. And this is something that I had shared with someone yesterday, where what do you do when you're gifting, the very thing God has put you on earth to be and function in, feels like it's a curse? Why? Because it's drawing people that you care about away from you. It's leaving a bad taste in people's mouth. Okay? Because the very thing, it feels like a curse because the very thing that God calls is a gift. Okay? Because the very thing God calls a gift. It starts to cost you. Oh, sorry. Can I say the sentence over? Let me get myself together. There are seasons where becoming doesn't feel like a blessing. It feels like a curse. Because the very thing God calls a gift starts to cost you relationships. People misunderstand you. Family dynamics shift. Okay. Friendships get quiet. What do we, back in the day, why you acting funny acting? You acting funny acting, right? Work relationships feel strained. And then you start asking yourself, did I do something wrong? Or am I just growing? I don't know what it is. And let me tell you something. Honestly, we more likely, because we like to beat up on ourselves, many of us, we more likely feel like and stop at the question of, did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? We don't consider the fact that we're growing. We don't consider the fact that we're shifting. We don't consider the fact that we're being stretched, that God is stretching our capacity. We don't feel that way, right? Because that's not what our emotions are ringing up in us. Our emotions are ringing up. What did I do? Something's wrong with me, right? What did I do wrong? Because why are my relationships responding this way? Okay. Listen, if you've ever felt any of this, type in the chat, I'm becoming. Okay. If you ever felt any of this, type in the chat, I'm becoming. I feel you, girl. I'm becoming. Put it in there. Okay. Let's get into it. Why becoming can sever relationships. Becoming often disrupts systems. It disrupts familiarity. It disrupts patterns. Okay. When you grow, you stop playing roles like the peacemaker at your own expense, the overfunctioner, the version of you that made others feel comfortable. And when that changes, people feel it, not because you're wrong, but because your growth exposes misalignments. Okay. It exposes misalignments. What often can happen, especially if a person, and I will say earlier to my testimony that both people were in transitional moments. Okay. And these are transitional moments that are, you're about to step in doo doo. You about to step in doo doo. You're doing way too much, bro. This. You're about to step in doo doo. So when you're one who sends warning alerts, this ain't it. Like, I'm trying to be gracious. I know, growing pains. I get growing pains, but I'm trying to told you, this is not the move. Okay. When you're that person and people want to do what they want to do, it can be often met with resistance. This happens in families. It happens in friendship. It happens in leadership, in our businesses, in the workplace. Okay. And when you stop shrinking, the system has to adjust, and not everyone is willing. Can you imagine if I were in both those instances to shrink in my friendship? Now, I was always like that, right? But to shrink and be like, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to do, I'm going to just chill. And I think for a time, because at that time, I tried to balance. And I think for a time I did. I pulled back. I was like, okay, I'm going to chill. I'm going to just go along to get along. But now I'm becoming something that I'm not. Now I'm becoming something that I'm not, just so I can hold on to relationship that is clearly changing, right? Because that particular person is changing and going in a direction that's not, that's harmful and not beneficial, right? So what's an example of this? I always like to give biblical context. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining me wherever you're joining from. Put a 1 in the chat, put a hey in the chat, put anything in the chat. Thank you. And for those who are watching the replay, hit #replay. Okay. So let's talk about Joseph, that the gift that caused separation. Okay. So his story is what do you say? Chronologized, whatever word is written in Genesis 37 through 50. All right. So Joseph's story is uncomfortable because his gifts came first, before his character was fully formed and before the people around him were necessarily ready. Okay. Joseph didn't, if you remember the story, go back and read it. But Joseph had a dream. He shared it with his brothers and it got him, sent away, thrown away. Okay. That's the synopsis. Okay. And so Joseph didn't lie about the dream. He didn't fabricate the calling, but the gift created distance. Okay, it created distance. Some people say Joseph's approach to telling them about the dream was an arrogance. I don't necessarily say that. I would say there was a measure of zeal. I think it was, in our immaturity. Sometimes we don't know. You're excited, right? When something happened, we don't know. When we're young, and I'm gonna say immature, right? Because youth can represent immaturity as well as just whatever stage, wherever we are in our development. Okay. We don't know. You just want to share and you assume, of course, I'm excited, so everybody's going to be happy for me. And that works when you're 3 and 5. Most people are. And the older you get, all of a sudden you realize that there are less applause, cheers, claps when you do any little old thing. When babies are babies, it's like anything. Cool cat, and you think, oh, it's a baby, right? When you're a baby. But the older we get, we notice it's less applause and less people are less impressed the older we get. And that has to do with maturity, yes, because okay, you're getting older now. You don't need all them extra applause for every little thing. But also, it's because there are people who are not interested in celebrating, right? What you do because of where they are, because of how they feel about themselves, right? And so his brothers misunderstood Joseph. They felt threatened, likely, and had maybe a projected sense of authority, and ultimately, absolutely pushed him away. Okay. And here's the tension: Joseph's gift wasn't the problem. Immaturity and fear around the gift was the problem. That's the development that Joseph needed to take place. So oftentimes what feels like punishment, right? Joseph could have felt like he was punished because of what happened after he shared what his gift showed him. That would be understandable. But what could have been the takeaway there? It could have been that he needed to grow in character in regards to maturity and fear, right? And so God didn't remove the gift. He removed Joseph from the environment, not to push him, but actually to not to punish him, but actually to push him and to protect the calling. Okay? So let's talk about how becoming isolates you before it elevates. So again, Joseph had to lose proximity before he gained position, and that's hard, emotionally and relationally. But separation doesn't always mean rejection. Okay. Sometimes it feels like preservate. No, sorry. Sometimes it means preservation in business and in career, right? So for my business and career people, and even ministry people, you can outgrow team dynamics, you shift standards, you stop tolerating dysfunction. This in family too, y'all. And suddenly you're different, you're too serious, you're changed, and yes, you absolutely have. Okay. And so I really want to talk about that because it almost feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. What do I mean by that? If you're already one who has this predisposition of I don't need people, I don't fool with people, it's too much, they too much, people be people, and I ain't got time. If you already have that predisposition, and then once you face opposition, right? When you're just, you're already kind of shaky about who you are, your purpose, trying to figure it out. You're kind of insecure. You're not all the way strong in it. You get a measure of opposition, right? In a relationship, an environment where you're trying to develop. It's like, see, this is exactly why self-fulfilling prophecy. This is exactly why I don't fool with people. This is exactly why you can't trust me. This is exactly why we start having that kind of dynamic. And could it be again that it's not about rejection, but it's about preservation? Could it be that God is trying to mature us and grow us in that situation, right? And so let's talk about what Jesus said, okay? In Luke 12, 51 to 53, go ahead and pull up the whole shebang. If I'm hold on, y'all. I'm about to pull it up. Here we go. So let's pull out what did Jesus say? Luke 12, 51 through 53. This is one of my favorite scriptures. I have a lot of it's a lot. I mean, the Bible just be amazing. But this is definitely one of my favorites. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be 5 in one family divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, mother against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. And I'm going to read on a little bit more. No, that's all I wanted to read. Okay, there we go. Okay, no, that was right. And so the question is, why would Jesus say that? He came to save folk. He came to bring us all together. He came to do all the amazing things. Why would he then say that he was coming to divide? Somebody type in the chat, why? If you're watching a replay, put why. I want to read also the Passion translation as well. Don't think for a moment that I came to grant peace and harmony to everyone. No, my arrival will change everything and create hostility among you. From now on, even family members will be divided over me and will choose sides against one another. Fathers will be divided from sons and sons from fathers. Mothers will be divided from daughters and daughters from mothers. Mothers-in-law will be divided against brides and brides against mother-in-law, all because of me. Contextually, let's start there. Contextually, Jesus is stepping on the scene and he is disrupting the Judaism, right? He is disrupting the culture. He is coming in. We all, well, hopefully you guys know Sadducees, Pharisees, all of them. The Pharisees, Sadducees, and Jesus, they had beef, right? He had beef with the priests, okay? Because he's coming in saying, I am him. I am him. I am he. All right. I'm the Messiah. I came to save y'all. Right. And so many people was expecting, for him to come with a sword, like they was expecting this explosive, dynamic. He had to, if Jesus come, he got to look this way and function this way and operate this way. Right. So many did not, there was a consensus where many believed Jesus was the Messiah, and also many did not while he was on earth for his 3 years, right? And so contextually, he's saying, hey, y'all gonna be having some stuff going on in your house. Some of y'all might believe, and some of y'all not gonna believe, right? I'm going to disrupt paradigms. I'm going to disrupt the culture in your house, not just the culture at large, but the culture even within your household, even within your close proximity relationships. I'm going to disrupt it, because if you're choosing me, if you're choosing my way, I'm going to tell you now, people are not going to like it. And because of that, people are not going to like you. I'm pointing to the camera. Okay. What does this mean? And when we zoom out of the actual context of the scripture, when we zoom out into this modern day, what does that mean? When you are attempting to be a disciple of Christ and follow those type of teachings, a part of being a disciple of Jesus Christ teachings is to be mature. Okay. I tell mentees, look at the Beatitudes. It's very countercultural and how we're supposed to function, how we're supposed to operate. And when you start really applying the teachings of Christ, when you really start trying to mature, develop, as people like to say, be your higher self, your more higher actualized self. Let me not. I ain't trying to mock it, y'all. I'm just saying. But I just know, like, this is the late mindfulness and be your higher self. When you're becoming and attempting to understand who you are and be the God designed version of yourself, the Christ-like, the allowing God to shine through you, all these different things, or your higher self, however you want to say it, but a better, more refined, more mature version of yourself, there is going to be tension and friction. Okay. That text isn't God celebrating conflict. It's God telling the truth about growth. And when you align with truth, values, and purpose, not everyone can and will walk with you. And let me put this in the context of, we're not just talking, Christians against Gentiles or Judaism against Gentiles. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about when you are trying to, the way, the timeline and rate in which you might grow and expand is not at the same rate of somebody else's growth, maturity, and revelation. You may be a forerunner in your family, at your job, in your ministry, on your business. Of course, if you are the leader of a business, you're absolutely a forerunner because you're over it, right? If you're a leader really anywhere, guess what? Guess who is going to hit you first? You. It's going to hit you first. And so understanding, and when we zoom out, anytime you are attempting to stretch your capacity to grow, mature, develop, guess what? There's going to be tension. There's going to be friction. Okay. And actually that tension and that friction is helping to grow you at an increased rate, right? Because without resistance, how can you build that muscle? Without resistance, how can you shred that muscle to make it bigger so it can have more strength, more capacity to carry weight? Am I talking? Am I talking? Am I talking? When you align with your truth, values, and purpose, not everyone can walk with you or will walk with you. It doesn't make them a bad person. They can still be your coworker. They can still be your co-laborer. They can still be your subordinate. They can still be all of those things. It doesn't mean that they will catch it yet. Doesn't mean that they will understand that they need to grow to this type of awareness or understanding. Everybody has their timing, their pacing, and their journey. So we don't just throw them in the trash. Oh, you don't get it. You're an idiot. Okay, bye. No. Not every relationship can come with you, and not every season is communal. And that hurts because we're human. We want to be relational. We want to be understood. We want to be accepted, right? And I think one of the things that we have to understand is that where we sow, we may or may not get a harvest from the place that we sowed. So if I sow and I give to a person or in this particular relationship, it does not mean automatically that I will reap from that exact person, thing, place. But I may have other relationships. Thank you, Google machine. I may have other relationships that I can receive a harvest from, that can pour into me, that can be beneficial, that can be reciprocal. And that is A-okay. Let's talk about this human side to this thing of becoming. Let's be honest. Becoming can feel lonely. You have grief that shows up. We got to, that's a whole series in and of itself. And I think I did one. I think I talked about it a little bit, but I might have to do a whole teaching on the grief that shows up, the mourning process that shows up in becoming. Not just mourning who you were, but also mourning what can't go with you. Mourning what cannot go with you. Who cannot go with you? Mourning that. Okay, we really have to talk about how this grief shows up in this time of transition, of development. And guess what? Because becoming is continual until, like I say, you're going on to be one of them until you land on the other side. Okay, this never stops. You're going to go through seasons where you have to grieve what your perception was, grieve relationships, green some hopes, right? You're going to have to. Okay. Becoming can feel lonely, grief shows up, confusion shows up, self-doubt shows up. Like, what am I, again, back to what I said earlier, what am I doing wrong? What happened? What did I say? Did we have an argument? Did I look at them cross? What went on? And you wonder, should I go back? Should I soften? Should I conform? I'm not talking about constructive criticism, stuff where it's like, yeah, we should tweak things. We can't allow, our personality is our personality, but there are some things that are not personality related, but they're just, we can tweak, right? But the question is, we can often wonder is, should I make myself smaller again? But growth requires tension tolerance. If you collapse emotionally, every time growth costs you something, you'll abort the process every time. Every time when it's like, oh, things are going well, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand why this relationship is acting up. Why mom's acting up? Why dad acting up? Why bro acting up? Why sis acting up? Why cousin acting up? Why friend acting up? Why this, why co-workers? Why boss? Why people under me acting up? All of a sudden, what's going on? Why colleagues acting up? Why other leaders, ministry leaders? What's happening? And if we just flail and if we're like the Sanford and Son, I'm Elizabeth, I'm coming home, but every time it's a crisis, we're going to abort the process. Okay. So let's talk about God's intention through it all and his design. His intention is it could feel like a curse, but that is my friend says, my bestie says, feelings aren't facts. They're valid, but it does not mean that they are facts. Okay. So even though becoming can feel like a curse, you walking in your purpose and your gifting can feel like a curse, it does not mean that it is a fact. That is not God's intention. That is not his heart. That is not his motivation. Okay. And so what is it? God is not trying to isolate you forever. He is simply repositioning you for alignment. Joseph didn't end up alone at all. He ended up aligned. He ended up aligned with purpose, with authority, with influence that helped his family. Amen. And capacity, right? He ended up with grace. He ended up with mercy. He ended up with the fruit of the Spirit just being, soaking through his pores. Soaking through his pores. Read that story. Soaking through his pores, right? And eventually reconciliation came. But after formation, some seasons call for proximity, a proximity shift. Okay. Others call for some distance, not because love is gone, but because calling requires clarity. So let's talk about reframing the season. That's definitely something very popular in therapy. The reframe. How can we reframe our thoughts? How can we reframe what it feels like to be in alignment with what the actuality of it is? Okay. So if becoming feels like a curse right now, hear what I'm saying. Hear me. You are not losing people. You are losing misalignment. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. And this season isn't about rejection, but it's about becoming who God designed you to be unapologetically. They say that iron sharpens iron. We hear that often. And for some reason, we don't get the picture of a lot of sparks and a lot of friction and some cutting. Like iron sharpens iron. Yeah, iron sharpens iron. But that signifies disruption. It signifies discomfort. It signifies heat. It signifies sparks, fire, right? That's what that illustrates. All of that so that that tool may be sharpened. All of that so that tool may be sharpened so that it can be fit for use. The most efficient use. Don't nobody want no dull knife, okay, as a cook. And I tease anybody who got some crusty knives, okay? Don't nobody, real cooks. We need our knives. Listen, I can't stand taking my knife out and it's not sharp. That's no fun. Okay. I need it sharp. So I need it to be so I can work efficiently. And we all know that when any dull, knife, axe, whatever you have, you run the risk of actually hurting yourself greater than if you have an item that is sharp. Okay. Is that everything I wanted to say? I guess it was. Listen, if you are of the replay gang, I need you to, what do I need you to do? I need you to hit hashtag replay. I need you to also send this to somebody. Because why not? Why are you not sending it to nobody? Send it to somebody. That'll be fantastic because it needs to happen. Okay. So send it to somebody. What else do I need you to do? I need you to look for the Becoming workshop that will be popping up at the end of the month. Okay. We're going to be doing a workshop and that's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time. So I'm excited for that. What else is going on? That's pretty much it. That is the main thing. That's pretty much it. Listen, if you enjoyed this, please comment. Please like, heart, star, fire emoji, something. Do all the things. And let's see here. I don't know why I'm saying that. But okay. Discard. Sorry, I'm looking at something that's giving me a hard time, but we're going to move on. Oh, I'm talking. Okay. Wait, sorry, y'all. My bad. All right. Thank you, everybody who was able to join. I appreciate you. Hi there. Thank you on the TikTok. Thank you on the Insta, the YouTube streets, everywhere. Thank you all for joining me on today's and this week's Mature Me Mondays. I hope that was helpful because I really think that one of the hardest things, once I really, and this is my second closing. Once I really went through my healing journey of understanding relationships and putting them, not idolizing them, that's a big one, putting them in its proper place in my life, putting it in, I really started to be able to be open. And me being able to get through it, be open, and heal from those relationships that were traumatic, that were hurtful, that were frustrating. Once I was able to heal, I was able to welcome other relationships that were so beneficial to me in my life. And I would have never been able to do that if I hadn't worked through all of those hurts, all of those even insecurities, all of those things, to be able to welcome people that have been just a gift. And now every relationship, every person I encounter moves me to tears when I think too hard. Why? Because to me, they are God winks. I always say that the people in your life are the expressions of God's love for you. Now, if you got toxic people in your life, it's a reflection of not only God's love for you, but also how you feel about yourself, right? Because we're supposed to love God and we're supposed to love people, love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So that means to me that I'm supposed to love God first, me second, so I can be able to love people, my neighbors, people around me properly, right? And so if we have toxic people around us everywhere in our lives that we keep on, giving close proximity to, now, we're going to have people depending if it's just plain old abuse, no, right? And that's physical, sexual, psychological, don't want to say trigger words, but okay. If it's those things, absolutely not. Excommunicado, goodbye. But even if it's just, they trigger me, they just say condescending things, and you might have to take some space for a little bit. You know what I mean? Depending on if it's family. So these things, it's layered. It can be layered. It depends on the scenario. There is not one blueprint for every relationship, for every person, for every dynamic. It's not, right? But it's about understanding being led by God, being led by God, and understanding that there is a measure of safety that you have to take in for yourself on what you can handle while you're becoming, while you're maturing, and while you're growing. And sometimes there are relationships that you got to, table for just a little bit, because it's not just about dropping people just for the sake of dropping people. You don't just drop people. Like, I always ask, any mentees of mine, any person, I ask them, do you care? Like, do you care about this person? Because it's not just about, well, I'm gonna just drop them because they did X, Y, Z. Okay, I mean, you can, but do you care about them? Like, does your love for them trump the small error that they made, right? That you just don't agree with, or you don't like the way they said something to you? Okay, well, adjust it. Tell them how you feel, right? So there are things. So always, you handle things case by case. That's why you can't treat people and scenarios like it's just one blanket statement, right? If you always treating everybody like they're an abuser, like that's not good. I hope YouTube don't flag me. I don't know. My bad. But you can't treat a relationship like, everybody is, you're going all the way to the extreme. Okay. So all that to say, keep being you. And trust that even if relationships do fall off, not every relationship is, meant to permanently fall off, but there are some that might. But understand that whatever you lose, God is absolutely going to bring that thing back. And then some. Trust me when I tell you. I know I lost some, but when I tell you, God has added people, and I just be thankful. I'm like, whatever you add is just gravy. Whatever else you bring is gravy. Whatever moments I have with people is gravy on top, because I'm just thankful, right? Hope that makes sense. Listen, it is honestly me with Coach D, where authenticity meets assignment. We're being real about these topics. We're being honest with ourselves. We're going to be honest and transparent with others about where we are, how we're feeling, how we're relating to the world around us, the people around us, how we are growing or not. We're going to be honest about it because it's needful. And we be out here hurting and don't talk about it enough. We don't say nothing. We're in isolation. We feel cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and we don't talk about it. And we know that the rate of yourself, because I don't want to get, banned blocked, of yourself is so high across the board, whether you are of a faith, Christian faith, or not. It is across the board. So there's a disconnect somewhere, guys, and we gotta start having these kinds of conversation, because it's the small foxes that spoil the vine. It's the small things oftentimes that lead and feed a greater thing. So let's start talking about these things, these nuances. get healed, get whole. All right. Honestly, me with Coach D, Authenticity Meets Assignment. Thank you guys. I will talk to you guys next week. And listen, please DM me if you need anything. I'm happy to help. Bye.